Hello everyone, welcome to the Green Effect podcast. This is episode number 2, and this is the first of 2 parts. We had Shauna Lynn Simon, who's the founder, lead designer, and lead home stager with Beyond the Stage Homes. And she is the one guest that I definitely wanted to have on. You know, with this podcast, we're not just talking about mortgages, we're talking about leadership, we're talking about business. And Shauna Lynn has built a business from the ground up. She's done it through contacts, she's done it through just hustling, and it was just a fantastic interview. So in this first part, we're going to talk about, well, how do you end up getting into home staging anyway? Another thing is having tough conversations with people, you know, who may not have a home that's quite ready to sell. And most importantly, maybe the biggest part of this whole episode is, how do you deal with cell phones in your bedroom? That's right, we tackle the very important things here on the Green Effect podcast. Anyway, without further delay, here's Shauna Lynn Simon.
Welcome to the Green Effect podcast. Finance, life, business, and everything in between. And now, your host, Stephen Green.
Welcome everybody. We have Shauna Lynn Simon. She is the founder, lead designer, and lead home stager with Beyond the Stage Homes. Welcome, Shauna Lynn.
Thank you, Stephen.
So as we start all of our shows, we have to talk about, how did we actually meet? Because all the people I know right now, I can't even figure out that half the time. How did we meet?
We're trying to forget about it. Is that what's going on?
I don't know if it was that bad, but...
No, it wasn't actually. So it's actually kind of an interesting story because, so I run a home staging team. And one of my team members that I teamed up with about just over 4 years ago now, I guess, is Jennifer Roth.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So before joining my team, Jennifer Roth was running her own home staging business in town. And you and her had connected, I believe, through Remax Twin City, because I know she was working there for a while. So
That's right. She worked the front desk.
You got it.
Yeah.
So she was working the front desk there and also started her home staging company on the side. And I believe you two, and again, I don't want to speak out of turn because it's kind of your story with her, but I believe that you two actually shared a booth at an event.
That's right. Yes, the KW Home and Garden Show.
There you go.
That's right.
So, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was the one that I actually provided the furniture for.
Yeah, you know, and we're going to talk about this in a second, but when you start a business, you try to find other people to pay for things.
Right.
And that's how we did that. So I know when I first started doing this mortgage thing, I couldn't, you know, what was it, $1,500 for a booth. Mm-hmm. And of course, what I did, I went out and found other people to bring furniture or pay for things, or
right.
I mean, what do I know about making things pretty, right? So that's right. Yeah, she did that. And that was your furniture. Very comfortable, by the way.
Good. We don't own any of it anymore because that was a few years ago.
Okay.
But glad you liked it anyway, because it's not usually actually sat on either because it's staging furniture. So
well, it was comfy.
We don't buy it for comfort, so glad that worked out. But yeah, so that's how you and I met through Jennifer, and we really got to know each other though through the workshops that we do together now. So that was how we really officially solidified our relationship. But we had met prior to that.
Right.
As far as where we actually met, that part I don't remember.
I know. I'm sure I probably showed up to some event, because you do a lot of events.
Yeah.
You do a lot of outreach, a lot of marketing stuff, and I know we've worked a lot on that stuff together, right? So yeah, who knows? We'll leave it at we met through Jen. That's good enough.
Sure. I'm sure she'll be happy to know that she's solidified this relationship that now has me on your podcast.
That's
so, hey.
right. If you're listening, thank you so much.
Mutually beneficial.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. So as you know, we talk a little bit about business on this show. So tell me about your business, because I wanted to have you on. I think you've done such a great job building a brand, building a business. And I think, like any good business, it's gone different directions and it's grown. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your path. Why home staging? Like, you didn't wake up one morning, and I asked the last guest, you wake up one morning and say, I want to be a lawyer, right? Like, why home staging?
Yeah, no, it was a little less direct than that, but you're not far off. I kind of just decided one day, poof, I'm going to be a home stager. And the way that came about actually was I purchased my own house. Which is often the story that you will hear from someone in the real estate industry or in home staging. So I actually had purchased my own house, and then ironically lost my job a few months later. So here I am with brand new mortgage payments. And so I'm searching for a new career. And my poor real estate agent, when I was looking for my house, took me 6 months to find my house. So, and this was at a time, I mean, I think nowadays it's a little bit more common to take a while because you're putting these offers in and maybe not getting accepted. And it's like, this was over 10 years ago. So that was not the case. It was simply me being fussy about what I was looking for.
And we're going to talk about this more later because I can just see you walking into a house and saying, this is not the one for me. And it's because it's not the right color. So I can just imagine. Actually, your poor realtor.
You're wrong on that part of it.
Oh, okay.
So let me tell you the story about this. Okay, so that's interesting that you say that because what happened was, so I loved the whole home buying process. And so I decided to set up a meeting with my real estate agent when I lost my job because I was considering becoming a real estate agent myself. I thought maybe this is a good suit for me. Maybe this is a good place for me to kind of fit in. So I met with her and I said, I'm thinking about becoming a real estate agent. Can you give me some tips? And she's like, yeah, don't go into real estate. I said, what do you mean? She's like, you need to become a home stager. I had never even heard of it at that time. And I said, well, what is that? And she said, okay, so here's the thing. So we used to go into these houses and I would walk in and I'm like, oh, this is a great house. If I was living here, though, I'd pull up the carpet and the living room should actually be that room. That room's actually the dining room over there. And I'd probably take down this wall and maybe open up this window a little bit more and then it'd be perfect. So she'd say to me, okay, great. Do you want to buy the house? Well, no. But if I did, that's what I would do to it. But I don't want the house. No, it's not for me.
Oh my gosh.
So I could see past every color, everything. I mean, you should have seen what the state of my house when I bought it.
Yeah.
It wasn't exactly what I would call staged, definitely, but I saw past all of that. In fact, when my mom came up to my parents don't live in town. My mom came to help me though on moving day to help me kind of sort through my boxes and everything else. And she stepped foot in the house. She called my dad right away and said, oh, she made a big mistake.
Oh, no.
What she was thinking. I don't know. She couldn't see the vision that I saw in the house. I saw it painted with the new flooring and the little things that I was going to do to it. She couldn't see any of that. And all she saw was what she thought was a rundown house. It was actually in really good shape. It is an older house. It was 60 years at the time. It's now 70 years old, and that's my style. But it needed a fresh coat of paint and needed some new flooring. So it was mainly cosmetic things. But
that's interesting if you have that vision, because ideally that's what you have to do as a home stager, I'm guessing, is it's not your taste. It's what are buyers going to want looking for a 70-year-old home or a 20-year-old home or a mature area or an area with seniors. That's what you have to capture.
What's
ideally
going to work best for the house, what's going to work best for the buyer. And so when my real estate agent suggested that I look into home staging, the more I started looking into it, the more I was like, this is so for me. I had no idea. This was the interesting part. I had no idea this was a skill that I had. I just assumed everyone could see past everything and create this vision in their heads of what they wanted to create out of the house. I had no idea that 90% of people can't do that. So
it's true.
Once I learned that, I was like, oh, this is what I want to do.
Because you have a gift.
I have a gift, and I'm a very sharing kind of person. My thought was, these poor homeowners that can't figure out how to do this themselves, I want to help them with it. And of course, it's evolved from that initial, like, oh, these poor homeowners, I kind of made them sound like they were completely desolate without me. And that's certainly not the case.
Keep them wanting more.
And as I started working in home staging, I think that's probably the part that I loved the most, was working with the people in their homes and seeing that I could provide solutions for them and things that were going to really help them. And they were so excited to have someone just tell them, like, this is what you need to do. And now they have this checklist and they have this game plan, and they feel a lot less overwhelmed once they have all of that. So I was someone that was on their team, and that felt really cool to kind of be a part of a team, but my team changed almost on a daily basis, and that was kind of fun.
Right. Yeah. That's neat to see that, like you said, the process. And then at the end of the day, whatever you're charging them, hopefully that's realized in the value.
Absolutely.
Like that, there's a thing there where, you invest this much, you get this much back. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
So
you'll always get your return back on anything that you put into. If you're working with a professional home stager, you'll get that return back. There are times where I see people that haven't consulted with the stager and have put some work into a home that they might not realize back. But what a home stager will do is we'll help to identify where the top kind of return on your investment is going to be. So making sure that you're investing in the right areas. I was working with a client once that they were actually flipping a house. Like they bought the house, they were going to do massive renovations to it, new kitchen, taking down some walls, replacing the flooring, all that was fantastic. But some areas where they were going a little bit too far was, for example, in the front entry, they wanted to build this big, massive built-in kind of coat closet, mudroom type space. And it was actually a lot better being nice and open. I said, so my suggestion would be not to build the build-in that you're thinking of, and I'll bring a nice bench for staging. So instead of spending about $1,000 on what you're planning, maybe more, I'm going to bring in a bench that'll cost you $50 to rent it. How does that sound?
Priceless advice, right? Priceless, right? Yeah.
So, and it's not to say that if they had done the bench, that buyers wouldn't have loved it. They would have loved it. It was taking it too far beyond what they were going to realize on their return. So,
and that's important. How many times do I see clients who are doing renos, they're getting ready to sell, and we all know that, I think we all know, the kitchen is a big item.
Absolutely,
where that
yeah.
very little money and then you can get more out of it. But they're doing backyard stuff, or they're doing, like you said, front hall stuff. And it's like, well, you're not going to see that come back, right?
Sure.
So,
and it's not to say that it's not important. Obviously, everything is on a case-by-case basis. But your top selling areas are definitely your kitchen, your bathroom, your living room, and your master bedroom.
Right.
Not necessarily in that order, but those are definitely your top return on
That's
your
where people
investment.
hang around the most, right?
That's where people hang around the most, yeah. Although we don't spend as much time in our bedrooms, I think, sometimes as we think we're going to. We still want it to be that kind of serene, safe place that we can escape to at the end of a long day. So we want to know that it's going to be comfortable and functional for us.
As long as you don't bring your phone into the bedroom. In all seriousness, we have that problem at our house. With my wife and I, where our phones come into our bedroom. They're on the night table, and when do you shut off? I've actually tried, and for any of my clients who are listening, I've actually tried to just get off my phone by at least 9-10 o'clock, just to wind down. And last night was a really bad example where I was up late, and I'm tired now today because I'm not used to that anymore, and it drains you, right?
It drains you, and they actually say, and I do not practice this, but they do say that you actually. The first thing you do in the morning should not be check your phone. Yeah. But I mean, it is like before I've even turned on a lamp, I am checking my phone. It is the worst habit that I have. But there's just some sort of peace of mind of just knowing, like, okay, the world did not explode last night while I was sleeping. Because somehow you think that that's what's happening.
Well, yeah, and your day, and it happened this morning. Either your day is going to get off to a really good start, or it's going to get off to a really bad, and that's it. That's your whole day has been decided on what your phone said in the morning. Anyway, I digress, right. But try to not bring your phone to the bedroom.
Right.
Okay, so how has home staging changed over the years? Because it's such a critical thing, and maybe it's because I've been at the workshop, 10 times and heard you and become so depressed about some of the examples you give. I'm looking at these pictures. If you've never come to the workshop, and you're going to hear a few shameless plugs here, but if you've never come to the workshop, you have to come. You'll either leave just really excited, or, as I do every time, completely depressed about how bad our home looks. But how has it changed? 'Cause I know it's important, but how has it changed over the years?
So the first thing I want to mention, I think, is that home staging is decades old. It's over 40 years old. So people are often surprised to find out that, like, oh, home staging's only been around for, the last 5-10 years or so. And the reality is that it's taken off in the last decade. So my company actually just celebrated our 10-year anniversary in May of this year.
Oh, wow. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. And we were one of the first home staging companies in the area. And that's when home staging really started to take off in the Waterloo region. But that said, home staging's been around for over 40 years, but it's definitely evolved over the years, and especially in the last few years. And actually, I speak to a lot of my staging colleagues about the changes that we've seen in the industry. We've definitely gone from the reputation of being pillow fluffers and declutterers to being recognized as the stylists and the marketing experts that we are. And I think that's one of the key things, is that home staging has always been intended to be a marketing technique. So it's not just about decorating a space. I've heard a lot of homeowners that have said, oh, I staged my own house and it looked great and it sold, and that's all fantastic. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you actually properly stage it. And you could still be leaving money on the table if you're not consulting an expert, because there are things that we've learned in order to ensure that the house is really showcasing the features. At the end of the day, they probably created a beautiful looking home, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they created the most marketable home.
Good point.
So that's what home staging is all about, is it basically integrates decorating with marketing to create that finished product and to create a home that home buyers are looking for and selling them on the lifestyle of living there. It's a whole experience. We're selling a whole package.
And how do you sell that? Like how do you go to somebody and say, and I'm sure you probably work with a lot of real estate agents because they're on the listing side, right? How do they sell that to their clients? How do they say, okay, you have to pay, and I'm making this completely blunt. I know it's not going to be like this, but if you want $500,000 for your home, right now it's a $450,000 home, but you client should pay $1,500, $2,000, $3,000, and you'll get 50 back. How do you sell that?
Kind of like that, to be honest. I think that money does talk. So if they can say to them, I know that if you do X, Y, and Z that the stage is going to come in here and help you with, then I can list your house for more money. It's just that simple. There's also the aspect of the overall sellability of it, that most houses will sell eventually at any price, at a particular price point, not necessarily the price point you want, but they will eventually sell.
Right.
But today's buyers are so much fussier about what they're looking for, that if your house doesn't show move-in ready, if it doesn't show in a nice pristine condition, if it doesn't show well so that it's showcasing the features of the house, a lot of buyers are going to be overlooking that. So you're really diminishing your audience, for starters. Everyone looks online first. So majority of people, I should say, not everyone, but majority of people look online first. And in a study actually that was done by National Association of Realtors last year, they said on average when people were looking online, they looked at least 10 other properties along with your property. Wow. So that's 11 properties being looked at once. How is yours comparing against those other 10, right?
That's a good way to put it too. Yeah, that's really good.
So those photos are the first impression, and then once they come into the house, we really need to capture them. So a home stager addresses everything from repairs and updates to cleaning, painting, obviously, color recommendations included with that. And they basically should be producing for you a step-by-step guide to preparing your house for sale that you can implement on your own. You don't necessarily, if your agent especially is paying for that consultation, which majority of the time we're working with the real estate agent hires us to come in and meet with their client, and they cover the cost of that consultation because it's invaluable to them. So a lot of times that homeowner, they can take just that consultation and they can get a really good bang for that buck, for sure, by implementing those items on their own.
Clean it up, paint it, do the small things. We're not talking major move a wall, stuff like that.
Right, exactly.
Add the bench like you said earlier.
I have very rarely told anyone to remove a wall for staging. I think I've only done it once actually. And it was very recently I actually did have a client, just last year, I had a client remove a wall and replace their kitchen. And those are two things that I normally would never say for selling purposes. But because of the caliber of house that this one was, it was a necessity for it. There was no way that they could expect to get what they were planning on getting.
The cost is relative.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, but it is very, very rare. And I think that's one of the misconceptions about home staging, is that I'm going to come in and tell you everything you've done wrong with your house, first of all, in the last 10 years you've been living there, or however long it's been, and that everything you have is ugly, and that I'm going to replace all your furniture. And that's not the case. We're actually trained to work with what you have and provide the most cost-effective solutions in order to maximize your house. And
that's a good way to put it.
And I think the key term here is also solutions, is that we're not, if I come into your home and I say to you, listen, I really need you to repaint this room and, make a couple little repairs and updates and whatnot. And if there's, for whatever reason, there's no way that's going to happen, instead of just smiling and nodding, I always say to my clients, can you please tell me, this is not going to happen. There's no way. And I can try to find a compromise at least, because sometimes it's better to at least come up with a compromise and a solution as opposed to just, you don't do anything at all.
Yeah. And that's a tough discussion, right? That's because people take their homes very personal, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I was on, they're going back a few years now, but I was on an open house tour with a few real estate agents. And we went into one house, and I almost felt bad for the listing agent because, realtors will give their honest opinion on things, which is the whole point of an open house tour. And I could hear the comments of, well, it smells really bad. And it's, did you tell them that? And the poor listing agent's like, yes. I'm telling him the smell is costing them money, but they don't understand. And they take it personally. They're like, well, too bad. That's the house. Go sell my house. Right. So that's a tough conversation. Exactly what you said. They could say, well, you're criticizing me. And meanwhile, you're just doing your job and trying to help them out. Right.
But this is the challenge when it comes to the real estate agent trying to have that conversation with the client. it's really easy to offend the client, and a real estate agent is wearing a lot of hats as it is. I mean, they've got to be that friend, but they've also got to be the professional that's giving them the professional advice that's going to get them to the next step. So part of their responsibility is to ensure that that house does sell the way that the client wants it to. And it means having those difficult conversations. But instead of the real estate agent having to have that conversation, that's where they bring in us as the home stagers. We are trained to have those conversations, and we can do it in a way that doesn't offend the client, but also gets them on board and understanding what the outcome's going to be and the benefit to it. So this is one of the reasons why so many real estate agents have teamed up with home stagers and other professionals. I mean, I know that if a client says to me anything about their mortgage or pricing of the house, when I walk into a house, if they say, oh, what do you think this house is worth? My first response is, that's not my responsibility. That's not my expertise. Talk to your real estate agent about that. They talk to me about their mortgage financing, or I get, I get this question all the time, bridging their mortgage.
That's right.
It's like my favorite topic for you to talk about at the workshops, because I can't tell you how often it happens to me. And I don't know why I end up getting that conversation. I think it's because clients have often purchased a house and they're in the process of listing their house, and they're uncertain about how the whole process is going to work. And somehow by the time I get in there, they've got these questions, and somehow they think that I must know the answer. And that's when I say to them, go talk to your mortgage professional. I can give some basic information about things like that, but they're not fact-based necessarily. What I can say is my understanding is that it's a fairly simple process to bridge your mortgage, and it won't cost you a lot of money. I recommend you talk to your mortgage professional about that.
Yeah, and well, having said that too, I mean, the businesses we're in, it is a relationship business. So if I'll get that all the time, where if they feel really comfortable with me, I know the way I run my business is I'm honest with people. I'm not going to hide things.
Sure.
This is what you have to do, this is what you can't do. But if they feel comfortable, they're going to start asking. I'll get questions. Well, my realtor said this. What do you think? Or my lawyer said this. Is it right? And you obviously have to be very careful with the answer. But where I'm going with this is that's a reflection of you and the trust that clearly they're showing you. So
absolutely,
that's a good thing. That's definitely a good thing. So
yeah, for sure.
So I know the one thing that I find really cool about you is I know, and actually in speaking to Jen back when she was starting out, there's no fighting between companies, right? And sometimes with companies there's battles, and there's it's Home Depot versus Lowe's or whatever the case may be. But I know you're generally about growing the industry, and so you even started up now your academy. So how did that come to be? Because I think that's one evolution of a business. You start to grow into different. You're still in your field, but into different avenues, right? To be able to grow the business. So how did that come about?
I think it came about a few different ways. I mean, going back on what you were just saying about the non-compete sort of aspect of things, you're right. I think that the community of home stagers is one that is very all-encompassing. And it's not to say that every single stager is going to get along with every other stager out there, but there's definitely a camaraderie and a community to it. And so I've never looked at at other local home staging companies as my competitors per se, but more as my colleagues, and how can I learn from them and how can I be inspired by them. And I've always loved that aspect of things. I've always enjoyed teaching. It's something that you can see from my history of every job I've ever worked prior to opening my business. I was always the person who trained every new employee that came in, and I'm a very systematic person, so I'm very big on policies and procedures and standard operating procedures, kind of that step-by-step systematic way of doing things.
You'd work well at a bank. Here's the box, make it fit.
Right? Like it's, and I, as much as, I love structure, I also know, you've got to think outside the box sometimes, but I like knowing that there's, a very definitive way of doing things and modifying that whenever you find a way to improve on it and improve efficiencies. So when I started my company, one of the first things that I did was I needed to create all of my templates for intake and for my evaluations and for, I've got this really cool thing called client care package. And so I created that. And as I was creating all this, one of my thoughts in the back of my head that I couldn't get out was just that constant, why doesn't someone just provide me with all this stuff? Why am I reinventing the wheel here? But the industry was so new still, especially in our area at the time and in Canada in general. And so I don't mean that to be a reflection on the training program that I took, but I did feel there were certain things that it should have gone beyond. And my training program was very effective in a lot of ways, but one of the things that it didn't fully train me on, it talked about how to have difficult conversations, but it didn't tell me that there was going to be a gazillion different types of personality types out there.
Of course.
That I knew from my bartending experience. So I actually, when I first launched my company, it was going to be me running the company, and that was going to be my sort of path that I was going on. And quite early on, I realized that I would love to build a team of stagers. I'd love to grow the company further. So I started creating a training program based on kind of everything that I felt that they would need to know about being a stager, from the actual processes of going into a house and doing the consultation and doing the staging work, to the behind the scenes of how to initially take the conversations, do their kind of, I don't want to call it a sales pitch, but do that initial intake, finding out what the client needs and how we can help them and that sort of thing. So I started creating that as basically an internal training program. And very early on that, I realized that that's really where the direction that I wanted to go. And I wanted to create a program for all home stagers that taught them everything that they needed to know. And I could use the skills of my customer service aspect of things from the bartending side of things and put that into it. So my training program provides them with every single template they could possibly need. So right out of the gate, they've got all the tools that they need. So as soon as they complete the course, they can essentially start taking clients right away.
And they know what a screwdriver is. Perfect.
And we tell them how high to hang artwork. It was actually funny because I did a post last week in a private Facebook group that no one else could see, but it's a group of home stagers. And I did kind of a throwback Thursday, and I said, hey, everyone, let's share one of our first staging projects. And I shared mine, and I was so proud of it. And when I look at the photos, I'm like, I clearly did not know how high artwork was supposed to go. And I had no idea how to, it was arranged well. It was styled nicely overall, but the area rug was too small and the centerpiece wasn't quite right. There's just things that...
So many little things.
So many little things.
Yeah.
But I was super proud of it. The agent was thrilled with it, and the house sold. But at the same time, the level of staging has elevated over the years. In terms of the expectation I think that people have, and in terms of the expectations we put on ourselves as well. So I want to train the next generation of home stagers to not make the same mistakes that I made when I was first starting out. Hopefully help them to avoid as many of those as possible.
And that's great if you've got someone like yourself who can do that with people. I think it's nice when, and I'm sure they probably come back to you, ask questions,
Absolutely.
Stuff like that. How far reaching is the academy? It's online.
It's online. So
how far are these people coming for this?
Most students are in North America. I do have a couple that are in Australia, and I believe one that's in UK as well.
Wow.
But most are actually in the US. I do have a few Canadians and even a few local ones for that matter. I've trained a number of the local stagers, which is really exciting to be able to train them in my own community.
And actually see them and meet them
probably. And see their successes too, kind of firsthand. And, it's really cool when I'm speaking with an agent and they tell me that they're working with a home stager and I find out it's one of my students. I think that's super cool. So,
but then you got to first ask, are they good at what they do? And if they say yes, I train them. If not, who?
What?
Who's that?
A little red flag, and then I make a little note, go back and speak to that person.
That's right.
No, it's, and you're absolutely right. I'm always trying to keep an eye on them and be able to do whatever I can to guide them into, up-leveling their business on a continual basis. So.
That concludes part 1 of the interview with the spectacular Shauna Lynn Simon. Make sure you listen in for part 2 because we're going to be talking about things like being competitive in your industry and working with your peers. Convention in Vegas. Seriously, does any work actually get done there? I heard work gets done by the pool. We're going to find out more about this. We're also going to find out more about how my daughter and I learned about what an accent wall is in a house. And finally, giving good advice to clients, how important that is, the value, stuff like that. So don't forget my handle for both Facebook and Twitter, RBC Stephen Green. And until next time.
Thank you for listening to the Green Effect Podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Google Play so you catch the next episode. And don't forget to leave a review. Much appreciated.